Hey, April.
Yeah, Simon.
Why was the Wagyu feeling blue?
I don't know, Simon. Why was the Wagyu feeling blue?
It was having a rare moment. I love that. I love that. Hi, everybody. I am Simon Majumdar, and welcome to a new episode of Eat My Globe, a podcast of things you didn't know about food. And on this very special episode, we shall be looking at Wagyu beef. This beef is known for its beautiful layer of marbling. This is the kind of meat that every lover of beef will bow the knees to. But what is it? Where is it from? How did it develop in Japan? And how did it get to the rest of the world? Don't worry. Beef happy. Oh, God. It starts so quickly. Sib. These are the questions we hopefully should answer by the end of this episode. So let's start by explaining the word Wagyu. That's W-A-G-Y-U. And is pronounced Wagyu, not Wagyu. At its most basic, the term means Wa, which means Japan or Japanese, and Gyu, which means cow or cattle. So Wagyu literally translates to Japanese cattle. And in this case, it particularly means the beef taken from, as Merriam-Webster describes it, quote, any of 4 strains of a breed of black or red Japanese cattle, valued for their highly marbled meat, end quote. Before we get into all things Wagyu, I should note that not all things beef cattle in Japan is classified as Wagyu. The other types of cattle is called Kokuyu-san Jiu, which is a rough translation to beef produced in the country. So example, a breed like Holstein that is raised in Japan is Kokuyu-san Gyu. Because, as we shall discuss later, Wagyu is from specific breeds, put another way, all Wagyu are Kokusan Gyu, but not all Kokusan Gyu are Wagyu. Now that we have discussed the difference between Wagyu and Kokusan Gyu, let's talk about all things Wagyu. First, let us discuss how Wagyu came to Japan. As you may recall from Season 2 of Eat My Globe, where I did a 2-part beefy episode on the history of beef, which you should listen to if you have not already done so. But to refresh your recollection, the first cattle was domesticated from a wild breed known as aurochs, or Bos primigenius. That animal moved to many places in Europe, Africa, and North Asia, while Bos primigenius is now extinct, with the last of its breed dying in 1627 in Poland. They have now evolved and developed as they migrated to different parts of the world. These days, cattle are generally divided into 2 subspecies, the Bos taurus and the Bos indicus. One can distinguish Bos indicus from Bos taurus by the hump. Bos indicus has one, while Bos taurus does not. It is believed that the first humans domesticated Bos taurus some 10,000 years ago in an area now known as the Fertile Crescent, which is the area of the Middle East surrounded by the Tigris, the Euphrates River, and the Mediterranean Sea. In North Asia, which includes North China, Mongolia, Korea, and Japan, the cattle fall under the species of Bos taurus. And for our purposes, Wagyu is of the Bos taurus variety. While some sources say humans domesticated Bos taurus 10,000 years ago, other sources say that the particular Wagyu strain developed 35,000 years ago. However Wagyu developed, these cattle arrived in Japan from Korea, between 500 BCE and 300 CE. The early Japanese used this cattle as workhorses, or should I say work cattle. This meant that the cattle were draft animals that pulled and carried heavy workloads. This is unsurprising, as Encyclopedia Britannica notes that Japanese cattle were known for, quote, their muscular builds, endurance, and strength, end quote. Bit like me. In 675 CE, Emperor Tenmu banned his people from eating meat, including beef, horse, dog, chickens, and monkeys, so they could be used for farming. As Atlas Obscura puts it, quote, it was also in the best interest of the country to discourage the eating of useful farm animals, since there were relatively few of them in Japan. End quote. Japan would add pork to this ban list later on. Some theorized that the emperor imposed the ban not just because of farming, but also because, as a Buddhist, the teaching of his religion prohibited him from killing living things. The ban eventually became, in effect, year-round. As an aside, an interesting effect of this meat-eating ban resulted in the Japanese losing height. During the Kofun period of Japan, which lasted from 250 CE to 538 CE, Japanese men on average were about 163 centimeters, or about 5 feet 3 inches tall. But during the Edo period of Japan, which lasted from 1603 to 1867, Japanese men were, on average, about 157 centimeters, or about 5 feet 2 inches tall. I find that really, really interesting, as it seems to support the theory how not eating meat, or at least the protein, can affect a nation. Back to Wagyu. Apparently, around 1830, the Japanese started improving their cattle by having the village leader managing the breeding sires or bulls, which ultimately led to, quote, inbred bloodlines, end quote, so the cattle could work better. This improvement in breeding movements would continue with the advent of new leadership. But it wasn't until we get to the 19th century that we begin to see cattle being considered for food again. In 1868, Emperor Meiji came to power. His government ended Japan's isolation from other countries and started the, quote, westernization, end quote, of Japan. This westernization included Emperor Meiji breaking the centuries-old ban on eating meat when he ate beef himself in 1872. This westernization also included crossbreeding the existing Japanese cattle with imported breeds like Brown Swiss, Devon, Holstein, Angus, Shorthorn, Simmental, Ayrshire, and Korean cattle. And when they crossed Japanese cattle with a British knight, they called it sirloin. I'm so very sorry. This is not me. Seriously now, by 1910, all the crossbreeding apparently produced lesser quality meat, so Japan stopped importing cattle for crossbreeding. Instead, Japan switched to improving intrabreeding. In 1944, Japan had identified 3 major breeds of Japanese cattle, or Wagyu. By 1957, it identified the 4th major breed. By 1990, Japan declared Wagyu a, quote, national living treasure, end quote. I definitely believe that. The 4 breeds that are now the national living treasures are the Japanese black, also known as kuroge, the Japanese brown, also known as akage, also known as akuushi, the Japanese polled, also known as mukaku, and the Japanese shorthorn, also known as Nihon Tankaku. So let's briefly talk about each one. The first Wagyu breed is Japanese black or kuroge. Depending on the source, it is said that either 90% or 95% or even over a whopping 97% of Wagyu is categorized under this breed. Kuroge means black hair or black hide, which means the cows have black hair or hide. One of the most famous bloodlines of Japanese black breeds is called Tajima. The other two bloodlines are Kidake and Shimane. The Tajima line has been around since the 17th century, and the story goes that in 1939, a Tajima bull in Hyogo Prefecture led a very privileged life. He was very well taken care of by his owner, and in return he became the father of 1,500 calves in his lifetime. And as a result of his productivity, it is believed that 99.9% of all Tajima cows descended from him. Wow. A descendant of this productive Tajima cow includes one of the most famous types of Japanese black Wagyu, and that is Kobe beef from Kobe, Japan. Kobe beef must come from Hyogo Prefecture and descended from the Tajima line of Japanese black breeds. And Kobe beef must come from virgin cows or gelded bulls. I tried Kobe steak in Kobe in Japan a few years ago. It was delicious and only needed a touch of fire to be perfect. This is because Wagyu, in general, has a lot of monounsaturated fatty acids, which means they are so fatty that even low temperatures melt the fat. In fact, our chef just leaned the steak on the side of the fireplace and not directly on top of the fire. Another descendant of this productive Tajima cow, and is also a famous black Wagyu, is one of my favorites, Matsusaka beef. While the cows that will become Matsusaku beef are initially bred in Tajima in the Hyogo Prefecture, they must spend around 3 years in Matsusuka in the Mie Prefecture to be considered Matsusaka beef. Matsusaka beef must also come from virgin females and fed soy, wheat, barley, and rice. I've had this type of beef when I was at a restaurant in Tokyo a few years ago, and I have to say it is well marbled and very, very rich. I had it prepared yakiniku style, or grilled over an open flame, or sukiyaki, or in a hot pot. They were cut very, very thinly. As yakiniku, each piece was barely over the fire but for a few seconds, and as sukiyaki, each piece was dipped into a hot pot for just a few seconds. I think it tastes better than Kobe beef. As beef baron Yoshinaga Koda described it, quote, "It's the concentration of fatty acid in Matsusaka beef that gives it a sweet flavor," end quote. I'm now getting very, very, very hungry. Anyway, other Japanese black Wagyu include Miyazaki beef from Kyushu Prefecture, Omi beef from Shiga Prefecture, Yonezawa beef from Yagamata Prefecture, Tajima beef from Hyogo Prefecture, Hida beef from Gifu Prefecture, which is also one of my favorites, Sendai beef from Miyagi Prefecture, and Meisawa beef from Iwatu Prefecture, and Ishigaki beef from Okinawa. I'm now getting so hungry. Moving on. The second Wagyu breed is Japanese brown, or Akage, or Akaushi. This primarily originates in the Kochi prefecture, which is the southern island of Shikoku. I'm having a lot of trouble pronouncing all of these, so I hope people can forgive me. And in the Kumamoto prefecture, which is the island of Kyushu in the southern west of Japan, it is the second most common Wagyu in Japan after the Japanese black. It is also known in the US as red Wagyu, probably because Akage means red hide. The third Wagyu breed is Japanese polled, or Mukaku. This is probably the rarest of the Wagyu breeds because it is found mainly in the Yamaguchi prefecture, which is the western tip of mainland Japan. And there are probably only about 200 cows. It was crossbred with European cattle in the mid-1800s and is not found outside Japan. And the fourth Wagyu breed is Japanese Shorthorn and Nihon Tankaku. This comes from the northern part of the country, which includes Hokkaido, Iwate, Akita, and Amori prefectures. It has been crossbred with imported Shorthorn from Europe and the United States. Again, this is not found outside of Japan. So let's have a look how these Wagyu are cared for. Some say that all Wagyu are fed beer and massaged on a regular basis. The Kobe Beef Marketing and Distribution Promotion Association denies that, stating, quote, neither massages nor the feeding of beer or sake to cows is part of its standard rearing methods, end quote. Another farmer in Kobe also disputes this rearing method and mused, quote, I love my animals and take real care of them. I raise them to 2.5 years. I also give them all names because herds on the farm here are rarely larger than 150 cows. But do I massage them? No. If I did, I wouldn't have time to do anything else. Also, no one feeds beer to their animals, as far as I know. Some competition level cows are treated differently. For example, we may use expensive shampoo to make their coats even shinier, but that's it, and no music. End quote. While the Kobe beef people deny pampering their cows, the Matsusaka beef people have a different story, according to the Japan Times. Quote, music is not the only luxury these heifers enjoy. The animals are also fed beer to stimulate their eating and receive regular massages. Mie Prefecture Government Veterinarian Emi Komoto says beer is typically fed to Matsuzaka cattle when they are older or in the heat of the summer. End quote. I wonder if they play Beethoven to these heifers. Oh, no. I wish I didn't give these over to Sybil. But anyway, the Mie Matsuzaka Meat Corporation also says, quote, 6 months to 8 months before shipping, in order to prevent the end of fattening, beer may be given to increase appetite. Some farmers also do massage with sochu to improve coat. Also, massage is an important task to improve the blood circulation of cows and evenly apply subcutaneous fat. End quote. And that massage supposedly leads to better marbling. Oh, is it really feasible to massage each of your cows? I don't know. But a fun fact I read was in 2017, on average, farmers in Japan raised about 50 cattle each. So I guess that it is possible that a farmer could set aside 4 hours a day to massage 50 cows for, 5 minutes a time with soothing music, of course. Oh, God. So there you go. Maybe that is why I like Matsuzaka beef better than Kobe beef. Matsuzaka beef is more pampered, just like me. Wagyu breeding in Japan is well regulated. Every cow's birthday, bloodline, and birthplace are recorded with a government entity called Zenwa. Cows are bred for about 10 months and then sold to farmers to be raised. Their feeding schedule is as follows, quote, from 11 to 18 months of age, the diet comprises increasing amounts of concentrate, 36.8 to 86.4% formulated feed, and decreasing amounts of roughage, jamboree, beer bran, hay, and rice straw. During the final stages, from 18 months of age until slaughter, the diet comprises 86.4% to 84.2% concentrate and 13.6% to 15.8% roughage. All the cattle have constant access to water and blocks containing minerals, salt, and a diuretic. Total feed consumption during fattening is normally 4,000 to 5,000 kilogram per head. End quote. Apparently, farmers also give their cattle vitamin A, which is supposed to help with marbling. They tend to be sent to slaughter around 30 months old and at 2,000 pounds. And then the Japanese Meat Grading Association grades the animal. Apparently, there are about 200 certified graders within the Japanese Meat Grading Association. According to the Japan Meat Information Services Center, graders look at yield grade and quality grade. Quote, yield grade is the ratio of meat to dressed carcass weight and is classified into 3 grades, from A to C. A, 72 and greater. B, 69 and greater. C, less than 69. According to numbers determined in 4 categories: rib eye area, rib thickness, subcutaneous fat thickness, and chilled carcass weight. Quality grade is classified into grades from 5 to 1. According to marbling, meat brightness, meat firmness and texture, and fat brightness and quality. End quote. Within the marbling category, the score ranges from 1 to 12, with 8 to 12 having very abundant marbling, like me. 5 to 7 having somewhat abundant marbling, 3 to 4 having somewhat scarce marbling, and 1 having very scarce marbling. And so the grades of the animal for quality is marked A5 to A1. As you may have heard head servers or heard butchers describing Wagyu. If Wagyu is described as A5, they are calling it the best, meaning it has a grade A yield, grade 5 in quality, with a very abundant marbling score. A1 is the lowest grade of Wagyu, meaning it has a low yield and quality, and likely has very scarce marbling. To put things into perspective, according to Daniel Vaughan at Texas Monthly, quote, beef graded as USDA prime would be at best a 2 on the Japanese scale, end quote. I guess USDA Prime does not meet expectations. Get it? Ugh. I'm really sorry. Anyway, the key for us consumers is to have distributors who will recognize the cuts of beef and chefs who know how to differentiate the animals while cutting. To make all these beautiful animals is great, but they will only be so recognized if they have master chefs to prepare them. Like so many other dishes that are prepared in Japan, it can take many years to become a master. The Japanese Meat Information Service lists a variety of ways to prepare wagyu, including, as I previously talked about, yakinuku, which is grilling thin pieces, sukiyaki, which is the hot pot dish, and as a steak cooked away from the fire. They also suggest putting thin slices in a salad, serving it like sushi, roasted on a hot ceramic plate like tobanyaki, blanched in boiling water like shabu shabu, brown some pieces like a tataki, and more. One other way I have tried wagyu in Tokyo was in a cutlet sando or sandwich. This is what makes wagyu such a special animal and why other countries began to want to grow these animals themselves. In 1975, Morris Whitney, who later became the president of the Kobe Beef Producers, Inc., imported 4 live wagyu cattle to Colorado in the USA. There were 2 black bulls named Mazda from Tottori and Kadake lines, and Mount Fuji from Hyogo with a Tajima line. They had also imported 2 red bulls named Judo and Ryusho, who were both from Kumamoto with a Kumamoto red line. There would be additional importations of live cattle to the United States from Japan until 1997, which was when Japan declared wagyu was illegal for export. Between 1989 and 1999, Australia received its first wagyu embryos via the US. After that, countries like Canada, New Zealand, Great Britain, Germany imported wagyu from the United States or Australia. Later, countries like South Africa and Namibia started growing their own wagyu cattle too. Currently, there's about 34 countries outside Japan that are breeding wagyu. Before Japan banned wagyu exports, Japan exported a total of 183 live wagyu cattle. That resulted in 221 wagyu cattle that form the basis of all full-blood wagyu bloodlines outside Japan. Put another way, all full-blood wagyu outside Japan descend from these 221 animals. That's incredible. Outside Japan, cattle could be labeled wagyu only if at least one parent is a purebred or full-blood. In discussing these wagyu from outside Japan, I just want to distinguish them from the animals grown inside Japan, so to avoid confusion. So I'm going to call wagyu grown inside Japan as Japanese wagyu, even though, as we know, calling it that is redundant. Okay, so let's talk about how we classify wagyu grown outside Japan. Full blood means the animals contain 100% of blood traceable to Japanese wagyu DNA. Purebred means the animals contain 93.75% Japanese wagyu DNA. It may be labeled as F4. Crossbreed mean that the animal has been bred with a non-Japanese wagyu breed. In the US, that breed is typically Angus or Holstein. Within this category are several categories ranging from F4 to F1. We already know about the F4 or purebred. F3 means that an animal has over 87% Japanese Wagyu DNA. F2 means an animal has 75% or more Japanese Wagyu DNA. And F1 means an animal has 50% or more Japanese Wagyu DNA. And if a Japanese Wagyu is bred with bread, it's called meatloaf. Oh, God. Seriously, though, my own view is you have to think of American Wagyu and Japanese Wagyu as very different animals used for different purposes. The melt in your mouth of the Japanese Wagyu would be suitable for something like shabu shabu, whereas the crossbreeds of American Wagyu would be suitable to those fantastic steaks that we sometimes see at American classic steakhouses. The crossbreed of Wagyu and Angus cattle, believe it or not, is actually called Wangus, which I have to say I think is rather a good name. I hope that this episode will lead you to try Wagyu or Wagyu crossbreeds if the rare opportunity arises, and you are able to do so. Make sure you try the A5 Wagyu. It's definitely not cheap. It can cost hundreds of dollars a time. One would even say that the stakes are high. But it is an experience you will never ever forget. And don't forget to try the crossbreed of Wagyu at your local steakhouse too. That is something you will never forget as well. I shall see you next week, folks. I'm going to eat some Wagyu. Take care. Make sure to check out the websites associated with this podcast at www.eatmyglobe.com, where we will be posting the transcripts from each episode, along with all the references and resources we used putting the episodes together, in case you want to delve deeper into each subject. There is also a contact button, so please do let us know if there are any subjects that you would like us to cover. And if you like what you hear, please don't forget to join us on Patreon. Subscribe, recommend us to your family and friends, and give us a good rating on your favourite podcast provider. Thank you. Goodbye from me, Simon Majumdar. We'll speak to you soon on the next episode of Eat My Globe. Things you didn't know about food. The Eat My Globe podcast is a production of It's Not Much, But It's Ours and Producer Girl Productions. We would also like to thank Sybil Villanueva for all of her help, both with the editing of the transcripts and essential help with the research.